Kimberly Turner from cookingwithkimberly.com, and today I'm going to show you how to bake holiday butternut squash tiger nut dinner rolls. Now, I'm going to get the butternut squash bit out of the way. I roasted a butternut squash for dinner the other night, and I kept half of it for this recipe today. Now, what I've done is I just washed it, cut it in half, scooped out the stringy bits and the seeds, covered it in olive oil, salt and pepper, and roasted it for about an hour until it was knife tender. So that's what I have here. I only need a cup's worth of that. Now, tiger nuts. If you've never heard of tiger nuts, they are the new hotness in health food, I have to say. I'm using the flour today from tigernutsusa.com. You can check them out online. They also have whole tiger nuts with their skins on and the skins off, and other goodies too, tiger nut oil and whatnot. So if you've never heard of a tiger nut, it's not actually a nut at all. It's a tuber. It grows under the ground like a potato or a carrot would, and that's what they look like. They kind of look like little wrinkly, you know, nasturtium nodes, if you've ever seen a nasturtium node from planting. So that's what it looks like, and these are hard, these are dried. So what they do is they use these ones and they grind those up with the skins on and everything, and you get this lovely flour. So this is what the flour looks like. It's light and fluffy. And I've actually sifted this in preparation for my recipe, and we're only going to use tiger nut flour today. However, you could use the tiger nut flour as you would use a whole wheat flour. So you could use a half and half recipe of regular flour and tiger nut flour if you wanted to. However, it wouldn't be gluten-free. So today, this is gluten-free. This is all natural. There's a million kinds of different nutrients you could have in here. They're organic. They're 100% nut-free, they're lactose-free, non-GMO, dairy-free, high in fiber, and resistant starch. That's really good for you if you're trying to lose weight. They're cholesterol-free and full of vitamins and minerals. They're non-allergenic in any way. They're not nuts. Okay, so anyone who has a nut allergy, especially kids, this is a great flour to use to bake up snacks and things like that if you are worried about kids with allergies. The tiger nut itself is wonderful for the elderly, for women, for people with diabetes and celiac problems. It's an amazing, amazing health food. Make sure you check out my review on this flour as well as the other products from Tiger Nuts. So let's get started. I have 1 cup of milk that I need to scald. So we're gonna scald the milk. It's kind of an old-fashioned way to do it, but that's how we do it. This is a recipe based upon one of our family recipes. Scalding the milk, they used to scald milk before milk was really pasteurized, so we don't really need that anymore. However, this is going to keep our recipe nice and warm, especially when I need things to rise. So I'm going to put it in the microwave. You could also do it on the stovetop. You want to bring it to heat, but you don't want it to boil. You can see little bubbles at the top, so don't overdo it, okay? It's almost like just creating some steam from the milk. So I'm going to only do this maybe 45 seconds or 50 seconds in the microwave. And if you did it on the stovetop, you would just have to watch it. If you don't think your milk is quite warm enough, just warm it up a little bit more. All right, we're gonna just put this to the side for a moment. I have 2 eggs. I'm going to beat them in a bowl separately before I add them to anything else. You wanna make sure you do it in a different bowl so that you don't add any kind of eggshells into this mixture. That wouldn't be good. Now these eggs are room temperature because I wanna keep things warm in this dough. Okay, so I'm going to use a cup's worth of the butternut squash, and I'm going to mash it in a bowl. So just scrape it out of the skin. You don't want the skin. The skin is just peeling off. It's wonderful. Okay, so that's roughly 1 cup of the butternut squash. And you can use the back of a fork, or if you can use a masher if you have to mash. Make sure that's as smooth as you can get it. I'm doing this recipe by hand today. However, you could use a mixer. If you wanted to add a little bit more holiday flair to this recipe, you could have roasted your butternut squash with cinnamon or nutmeg or cloves even. And into my butternut squash is gonna go my beaten eggs. And I'm gonna mix that thoroughly. So this is what the mixture looks like at this point. All right, so we're gonna use a large bowl to mix everything in. And let's get started with that. I'm going to add an 1/8 of a cup of molasses. And I've let that sit out so that it's nice and runny. It'll give a nice sweetness and a nice richness. I'm also using 1/4 of a cup of honey. I'm also adding 1/4 cup of butter and coconut oil mix. Now you could use either or entirely, or I like to add both because butter has a nice flavor and so does coconut oil. I just like to mix it up some. Now, if you're wondering what tiger nuts taste like, to me, they kind of have a coconutty flavor to begin with. So that's why I wanted to add the coconut oil today. Now, don't worry about melting that oil or the butter, because the scalded milk will do what you need it to do. It'll melt everything. However, you don't want that milk too hot, because you don't want scrambled eggs from the mixture of the butternut squash mixed with the eggs when you add that. So in goes that warm milk, and as promised, it's melting that butter and that coconut oil. Stir that all through to combine it evenly. You want to get the honey mixed with the milk and all the butter and the oil melted. It smells amazing in here already. So this is beautifully and evenly combined. I'm going to add my butternut squash mixture with the eggs now, and the milk should have cooled down quite a bit by this point. Stir that all through to ensure that our buns rise really nicely. I've added the 2 eggs, and I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda when I add my flour to this mixture. So it's a triple threat. Using the tiger nut flour today is going to help keep things gluten-free, and it's going to help you kind of bake a little bit healthier than maybe you usually can during the holidays. All right, that's good and stirred. Now we can start adding our flour. We're going to use 4 to 5 cups, I'm thinking, of this tiger nut flour. Tiger nuts really can soak in a lot of liquid. Like when you soak these to eat for snacks, you want to soak them overnight at least, and they blow up at least double the size. So this is really going to be able to hold a lot of liquid. So I'm going to add about half of this flour until it's barely combined in here. And what I also want to do is I want to sift my baking powder and my baking soda into these first couple cups of flour. So in that goes. You just want to make sure you don't have any, weird things in there, or chunks of your baking powder or baking soda. There's nothing grosser than in your baking when you get a chunk of the baking soda or the baking powder. So there you go. That keeps you from having any trouble. Into my mixture, I'm gonna add about half of this, and I'm going to stir to barely combine. Just get it kind of in there and coated, things mixed. Add 1 cup at a time until you see this mixture starting to kind of pull away from the sides of the bowl. Okay? And if you need a little bit more flour, then you need a little bit more flour. Again, I'm adapting this recipe from one where I use a glutinous flour. So we're just gonna eyeball. All right, looks like maybe I've added enough, and that's almost 5 cups of flour. So you can see things are starting to pull off the sides of the bowl instead of being all stuck. I'm just gonna use a little bit of tiger nut flour in a bowl just to keep my hands a little bit drier when I'm rolling these rolls. Now these aren't going to be traditional rolls that you might be thinking. They don't have gluten, okay? So it's not going to rise, it's not going to have bubbles in it. You're going to kind of think of it more like how a muffin might rise if you're using cornmeal, or you're using some kind of whole flour like that. So now this has kind of soaked in a lot of the liquid. I just kind of formed it into a ball to let it sit for a while. It feels moist, but not soaking. My hands aren't wet, but that's quite moist. It feels very light and airy and fluffy. If you grab it, you can kind of feel the bubbles in there from the baking powder and the baking soda. Now, these aren't going to be real heavy like hockey pucks. They are going to be kind of light and fluffy. However, I'm going to make them a little bit smaller because they will be quite filling as well. And you might not want a big giant roll of these since they don't rise. It's not going to be air in it. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of flour just on my hands to make sure I've got a little bit drier, okay? This is probably gonna make, I would say, at least 2 dozen of these little rolls. And I'm just gonna grab something maybe in between the size of a golf ball and a tennis ball, maybe something like that, okay? And I'm just going to very gently roll them into a smooth ball. I don't want to pack them, okay? You wanna keep them light and fluffy. Organize them on your tray. They're not going to rise a heck of a lot, but they will separate a little bit. They'll have a nice crack so that when you go and put butter on it after you serve yourself, they kind of can run all in there if you're serving them nice and warm too. These are going to take a little longer than traditional buns as well because it's quite a dense mixture. When you're making quick breads and things like that, those take about 45 minutes to an hour for a quick bread in the oven because this is more like a batter, like a drier batter than a dough, I would say. So just roll those up to nice little balls. Try and keep them even sized. And I'm preheating my oven to 375 degrees. And again, if you need just a little bit of flour on your hands, go ahead and get a little bit of that. The beauty about these as well is that you don't need to let them rise. So it is kind of quicker in that way. You can see the beautiful pieces of squash in there, little bits of squash. All right, I have 2 trays of these ready. Let me show you what they look like. They're slightly bigger than a ping pong ball, I would say, but definitely smaller than a tennis ball. So they're ready to go in the oven. My oven is preheated to 375 degrees on convection. All right, I'm gonna let those go for 5 minutes on 375, then I'm gonna turn them down. You'll see me then. My timer's going. I'm gonna flip the trays around because I have 2 in the oven at a time, and we're gonna turn it down to 325 degrees. I don't wanna take them out of the oven for you, but I'll just explain what's going on in there. They're kind of cracked slightly, and they're gonna continue to kind of crack open at the top, and that's exactly what you want because butter's gonna go in there. It's gonna be perfect. So 325 degrees. Now I'm thinking this is going to take about 20 or 25 minutes, but you're going to have to, you know, every day is different. The atmosphere's conditions are different in your kitchen every time in different areas of the world as well. So what I'm going to say is you're going to want to kind of gently squish the buns. If there's still a lot of give, they need some more time. They'll still be sort of wet. Even if you put a skewer down the center of the bun, it's going to come out clean. So you're gonna have to eyeball and just kind of feel by squeezing. If there's too much give, I'll let them stay in there a little longer. You can always take one out and check it and see if they need a little bit more time, and you'll be able to tell if it's way too moist in there or not. So I would say start with 20-25 minutes and check them right then. All right, these are done. They're beautifully browned. You can see that they've cracked open on the top, and that's what I want. They kind of look like big round cookies sort of in a way too. Gorgeous. It smells so wonderful in here. The length of time it's going to take for them to be done depends on how moist your mixture was, your atmospheric conditions, your oven, and how large you made them. So mine took roughly about 30 minutes. Just keep your eye on them. Like I said, even if you put a skewer in there, it is going to come out dry. But you still need to keep them in. But you can tell, mine here, they're hot, but they are crispy on the outside, and they have no more real give on the inside, which means they're gonna be done, okay? So I'm just gonna let them cool for a couple minutes before I try one. Just gonna remove them to the cooling rack. And as they cool, they're also gonna harden up a little bit as well. But you'll still find that inside the texture is nice and light. I do like to use a silicone baking sheet to keep things from sticking. But if you don't have one of those, they're amazing, just use some parchment. 2 dozen beautiful little gluten-free holiday rolls. Let's plate these up so I can bring them to the table. They look gorgeous. Ooh, smells heavenly. And they're still warm. And they're a nice option for someone who maybe is trying to eat healthier or has a celiac problem, right? Or who is diabetic. That's one happy turkey. Let me try one of these for you and show you all about what's going on here. Break that open. Look at that. They're moist, they're still hot and steamy. Use a little bit of butter, because why not? Just melt through there. And you can also melt it all in the crack on the top. See that? Those cracks. Mmm. Mmm. That's a treat. Mmm. Mmm. They're light. They kind of melt in your mouth. Mmm. They're sweet. Mmm. And they're good for you. Mmm. That's a good roll. Yum. They're almost the texture of a beautiful muffin inside, like a bran muffin or even a corn muffin. Absolutely delightful. Those are delicious. That's a wonderful recipe, and I think that you'll make them over and over again. Those would even be lovely just for a Sunday morning. I think the kids would like them too because they have that nice bit of sweetness. Again, if you wanted to add a little bit of spice here and there for the holidays, wonderful. Add some dried fruits. You could even add seeds to it, like sesame seeds or flax seeds or chia seeds. It would be absolutely delightful. Poppy seeds. So there you go, tiger nuts flour. You're gonna love this stuff. It's a very versatile flour. You can make a whole bunch of different things. Make sure you check out my other shows as well, and all of their Tiger Nuts products at TigerNutsUSA.com. So that's how you do it. That's how you bake holiday butternut squash and tiger nut dinner rolls. You're gonna love these, okay? Follow me on Twitter at Cooking with Kim E with a capital E, like the fan page, at Facebook.com/CookingWithKimberly. Check out my Instagram.com/webchef of all trades. You can check out my shows on YouTube.com/CookingWithKimberly, at my.fossum.tv/CookingWithKimberly, and you can check me out on Roku. My channel is Cooking with Kimberly, and I'm also syndicated on Apple TV and Amazon and some other places. Check out my website at cookingwithkimberly.com and subscribe. Interact with us and let us know what's going on in your culinary world, all right? Be a champion in your kitchen and eat deliciously. Bye.